בגלל זה אני אצלוב אותך. איך אתה מעז להטיף ליהודים התמימים?
אלוהים! למה עזבתני?
אתה נאצי ישו, אתה נאצי!
טופי! לא, טופי, אני מפחד! אני הלכתי על המים, אני הפכתי טופי, לא!
זה רק אפק, פחדן!
לא! טוב!
Think about this clip next time some so-called Christian Zionist tells you to send your money to Israel. I don't blame some of you for thinking that you're supposed to support Israel and the powerful Jewish organizations in America. After all, the media constantly tells you that it's a Christian's duty to support Israel.
Naast Joodse organisaties en de politieke lobbygroep AIPAC scharen Wolt en Mearsheimer ook de miljoenen evangelische christenen onder de Israël-lobby. Allen hebben zich tot doel gesteld om de belangen van Israël te verdedigen en kritiek op Israël te doen verstommen.
There's a new day in America between Christians and Jews. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on this, that we are going to be together, inseparable in the defense of Israel and the Jewish people. We have millions of people in the infrastructure. We have over 22,000 spiritual leaders, and some of those spiritual leaders have 1 million or 1.5 million names on their mailing list. We have the major radio, television ministries in America supporting what we're doing because every evangelical believes the Bible, and the Bible has a clear mandate to be supportive of the state of Israel.
There is no specific discrimination against Palestinian Christians as opposed to Palestinian Muslims. It's a shared suffering.
Christians see themselves very much a part of the Palestinian national movement. They identify with the Palestinian people as being their people.
Palestinian Christians have difficulty getting to churches on Sunday morning if they wanted to come to Jerusalem because they don't have that permission or that legal right, according to the Israeli government, to come to Jerusalem for worship.
This I picked up in a home of a wonderful Christian family in Beit Jala. And this is the kind of armor-piercing weaponry that's being used against civilians, innocent civilians.
But the Christians here have to live with exactly the same sorts of annoyances and frustrations of occupation as their Muslim neighbours. Bethlehem is just a 20-minute car ride from Jerusalem, if you have the right permits. If not, the separation wall, checkpoints and expanding Israeli settlements cut the town off from the city next door. Some fear Bethlehem will soon be a ghetto surrounded on all sides.
We've been living under occupation since many years, many decades actually. Since 1948 the number of Christians has decreased from 12% to 2%, making only 60,000 in West Bank, Gaza and Jerusalem.
The irony is that it's much easier for a tourist from France to visit Bethlehem than it is for some Christians living in the Palestinian territories.
To the back door. And I asked the Lord, why is that? And this is what I felt the Lord say. For the first time in their life,
the Palestinians are the ones who have been scattered to the four winds, to the four corners of the earth. The lucky ones living here as refugees in Vancouver. The unlucky in their millions living in rancid, rat-infested refugee camps in the Arab countries alongside Palestine. Generation after generation, some of them now there for 62 years. Others for 43 years. Some of them can even see their own houses from their refugee camps. Can you believe it? The Jenin refugee camp, 1 square kilometer, 14,000 families. They all come from Haifa, a shining city on the sea. If they stand on the roof of their shack with a pair of binoculars, they can actually see their own houses, their own gardens being lived in and enjoyed by foreigners who came from Vancouver, where they already had a house, where they already had a life, where no one was persecuting them, where no one was taking any action against them. And they went there and stole the houses of the people who've lived for the last 60 years.
Of the 500 Palestinian villages in what became Israel in 1948, 400 were destroyed.
These efforts to destroy the possibility of their returning home were countered by the United Nations, which continues to affirm their human right enshrined in international law and morality to return.
A Palestinian who had lost her land or lost his land as a result of the creation of Israel in 1948 cannot come back even for a visit. I can go back to Israel as if I were returning and claim immediate citizenship, having no historic tie, speaking no Hebrew, knowing no one in the country, having no family who ever was there. All that one needs is being Jewish, a religious group like any other.
The panel of jurors who considered cases presented to them about the treatment of Palestinians brought together renowned lawyers and judges. They found that the discriminatory policies in place do constitute apartheid and urged all nations to impose sanctions against Israel until it changes its legal systems.
The Israeli legal system, preferential status is afforded to Jews over non-Jews through its laws on citizenship and Jewish nationality, the latter of which has created a group privileged in most spheres of public life, including residency rights, land ownership, urban planning, access to services, and social, economic and cultural rights.
The jurors, who hailed from Britain, Spain, France, Northern Ireland, the USA and South Africa, plan to raise the findings in their political and legal spheres in an effort to ensure equality for the Palestinian people.
In terms of racism, there is no difference between apartheid South Africa and Zionist Israel. The Zionists, however, have the biggest weapon that was not available to South Africa apartheid. Bigger than F-16s, tanks, and nuclear missiles put together. It's called the Holocaust. The Holocaust allows Zionists to manipulate world public opinion and to stifle any possible open discussion. It is simply their biggest asset. Today, to be an anti-Zionist is construed as being anti-Semitic, and to be anti-Semitic can send you to prison in Europe.
The reason they use the names Israel, the Star of David, hijacking, stealing the identity of Judaism and the Jewish people is in order to get a legitimacy for their existence, that people should say, oh, it's God given to them, and that they should put fear and intimidate people from speaking up against their actions because they'll call them anti-Semitic.
Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country. As you know, they have power, which it's okay. They are talented people, and they have power, money, and media, and other things. And their attitude is Israel, my country, right or wrong, the identification. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And it's very easy to blame people who criticize certain acts of the Israeli government as anti-Semitics, and to bring up the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jewish people, and that justify everything we do to the Palestinians.
It's used politically in a very effective way, in a very cynical way. I mean, it's very hard to say this, but I think it's true. It's seen as a very useful PR tool. You know, the way the government plays on the guilt in Europe over the Holocaust, so that you can't criticize us. Look what you did to us, you see. It intimidates non-Jews. It closes up discussion. It's very effective. And Israel is willing, for the sake of its PR and to silence critics, it's willing to sell the victims of the Holocaust.
The sad fact is that those 6 million Jews that died because of a fascist, racist ideology are cynically being used today to justify and support another fascist, racist ideology. As most of my family, on both sides, were amongst the victims of the Holocaust, I withdraw my permission from Israeli government and Zionists worldwide to use their death in such a hideous way.
Go ahead.
Hi. During your speech, you made a lot of references to Jewish people as well as certain people in your audience, not Jewish people in general, but certain people, especially in your audience, to Nazis. Now, that is extremely offensive when certain people are German. And they're also extremely offensive to people who've actually suffered under Nazi rule.
I don't respect that anymore. I really don't. I don't like and I don't respect the crocodile tears the crocodile tears. No. I'm sure, folks, allow me to finish and allow me to finish. Listen, sir. Allow me to finish. Sir, I don't like to play the foreign audience the Holocaust card. But since now I feel compelled to. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother, please shut up. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on my father's side,
the Jews did not take arms against the Germans.
My late father was in Auschwitz concentration camp. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering